Now we're going to continue with this. And just in case you're wondering, this exercise will be highly relevant to the practice of Chenrezig. If we turn our minds and our thinking about the practice of shamatha away from the determination to be still, and to replace that determination to be still with a determination to recognize what our experiences are as they unfold, we will have a different approach to our meditation, and that approach will, I think, lend itself to some profound experiences. So as we continue with this, just sitting casually, not too stiff, relaxed, and while we might pay attention to our breath coming and going, now try your best to pay attention to the experiences coming and going. And without any boundary whatsoever, no rules whatsoever about what the experience is that you pay attention to. Whether it's a warm breeze on your face, or the sensation of your clothing against your skin, or somebody sneezes or moves, or a car or a plane goes over, or you remember previous experiences and you have experiences of liking and disliking, perhaps even love and hatred. In this context, if you can see it, it is really good. So while sitting, observe your experiences. And one more thing, if we had a day or two more, we could stretch this out maybe at some point. But this morning, do two things at once. One, notice the experience, whatever it is. And as you rest your awareness on that experience, as it emerges and unfolds, inevitably the experience dissolves. Perhaps it dissolves suddenly, like a light going out, or it may dissolve gradually, little by little. If it's an image, it may just become more and more unclear and then not be there. We often talk about, in a kind of high-minded way, the importance of understanding the union of clarity and emptiness. So just a quick explanation of what that means. The word clarity refers to an appearance. The appearance could be pain in your back, or it could be an image in front of you, or an image that you remember, an experience that you had and recall, or it could be an appearance of looking forward to doing something. In other words, it's an experience. It's helpful and will be more and more helpful if you can recognize your experiences as they unfold, without naming them, without judging them, just recognizing them. And then there's one more piece, which you may find inspiring, but difficult. When the experience arises and we see it in our mind's eye, so to speak, and the experience perhaps is sudden and then gone, or it grows gradually and more intense, or it changes its shape, its nature. Think that your job is to just see it. You don't care how long it lasts. You don't care if it's pleasant or unpleasant. You just see it. And one thing or two are certain. First of all, the experience will not last. Even the most intense and durable experiences do not sustain themselves indefinitely. Recall some long past, really uncomfortable experience that lasted days or longer, but it's gone. If you hold this view while the experiences arise, that each of the experiences is utterly unique, never having occurred before, and never occurring again. So I know this challenges us because we tend to label and put things in their little cubby holes. Here we have to recognize that the thought that went through our minds yesterday may appear like the one that went through our mind this morning, but it is not the same. It is utterly unique. No matter how many times it appears to be similar, it has never occurred before and will never occur again. So as the experiences arise, if you can hold that view that each appearance, each thought, each taste is utterly unique. That will be helpful. But more important even than that is that we rest our awareness on the experience as it arises. Because the singular, most important thing of all is that the experience will dissolve. And our most important relationship to that experience is its dissolution. Because the dissolution of the experience, in the moment that you are fully aware of the experience, the dissolution is the recognition of emptiness. Without that emptiness, nothing would ever dissolve. Our experiences would be permanent. But out of that emptiness comes all of our experiences, continually over and over again, but never the same twice. The best analogy that personally sings to me, I could say, is being on a boat in the ocean and seeing waves and swells come and go. And we are not fooled into thinking, there's that wave again that I saw yesterday. It's so easy to understand that a wave arises and disappears. It never occurs again. It never occurred before. So that every experience is utterly unique and fresh. So if you can hold this view while the experiences come and go, that will be very helpful in the practice of Chenrezig. So let's take 2 or 3 minutes. Place your awareness on the arising and the dissolution of appearances. And if you can do it non-conceptually, that's really what we need to do. As an experience arises, softly, kind of in the background of your mind, hold that view. Filter your internal conversation. If you must talk about it to yourself, say, this has never occurred before. And as it dissolves, you can say it will never return. No matter how much it appears to be something that happened before, that never happens and never did happen. And so then you just allow the mind to settle again. Allow the brain and the body to also settle and relax. Now, do we have Chenrezig texts?
Yes, they're on the cabinet in the back and the entryway table there.
Right.
There are several, and there are picture tables here and in the back of the mirror there. Here. Here. There are two here, several in the back. Thank you.
So if you're willing to raise your hand, I have a question. Bill raised his hand so fast, I felt like the question got answered. I'm wondering kind of what the ratio is. How many people here are familiar with the Chenrezig practice? Okay, that's too many. So how many people are not familiar with it? Okay, thank you. It's important that you all get what you need. all the time. So, by way of preamble, it is my personal opinion that all of us, from the place of being very familiar to the place of never having seen it before, that we need a way to relate to the text. Not that it is just kind of like a grueling chore, because I remember having grueling chores in texts sometimes. It can be helpful, but often it's not. So I would like us to have a means of relating to every page in the text in a way that is helpful, so that we're going to start on page 1 in the text. And now that you're professionals at noticing and recognizing your own experience, which actually, if you have not gotten good at that, you should be interested in this process, because what is more important to you than your experiences? I can't imagine what would be more important. And yet, it is true that I suspect everyone here, and certainly I would include myself, has spent most of our lives not paying attention to our experiences. If we stepped on glass, we paid attention to it. But when it was just an experience going by, we did not pay attention to it. And as a result, we don't know ourselves as much as we could or should. So let's take this as the opportunity to start to become really facile at recognizing our experiences without labeling them or doing anything, just seeing the experience as it is. So on page 1, so here we're going to explore why we read page 1. And just to say, we may not finish this month. We're going to go as far as we can, and the point is that it has to be really good. So as far as we can, and we will finish it in an appropriate way wherever we come to by the end of the day. But so those who have completion complexes, I'm one of those people. So I apologize to myself often. It says on the text, the prayer to the lamas of the Mahamudra lineage. So here we have a really important thing within the tradition of Buddhism that we're part of. We're part of what is called the Mahamudra tradition. So Mahamudra is one of those things that references very advanced practices, advanced levels of realization, which you can never realize if you cannot see your experience. So seeing your experience right here from page 1 is critical. And actually, it's best if you can see it whether you're awake or asleep, and by extension, whether you're dead or alive. I see people kind of slumping in their seats when I say that. What are we gonna? They're gonna kill us, maybe. How else would you know? So, the prayer to the lamas of the Mahamudra lineage is meant to be, when we recite this text, it is meant to imbue an experience. We are meant to have an experience. Actually, we're meant to have an experience which is so profound that we cry, that it's just overwhelming. And it's because we have accomplished something important. We have seen things that are important. We have learned to engage in certain practices that allow us to see things that we didn't see before. And so, of course, we have an appreciation for those individuals who introduced us to that. But that individual who introduced us to that also has that same experience. It's like one by one going back. That's what we call a lineage of people who had that same experience and carried it forward and gave it to others. So the lineage in pretty much all Buddhist traditions is absolutely critical. So our admiration, our devotion, we say, to that becomes a major piece of our path. But we don't want to use the word devotion lightly, because it often is misunderstood and misapplied. So really, I like to start with appreciation. We appreciate what someone gave us. Like maybe someone when you were in school or college, or somebody that you knew, like gave you something, some kind of wisdom. I remember myself, an old man who lived down the street, who told me when I was about to go to college, he said, "Don't worry about the subjects, worry about who you study with. Find the right teacher, don't worry about finding the right subject." And in retrospect, I look at that and I think that was really good advice. So we are looking at a text that is filled with really good advice. So we're going to read this text. I think it's a good struggle. We're going to read the text in Tibetan. And not because we're meant to read it in Tibetan or understand it in Tibetan, though if you want to do that, that's a good thing to do. But because this particular prayer is about experience. In one sense, it's a really boring prayer because it's filled with names of previous lineage holders who we never met. Well, actually, there are a few exceptions to that. If you happen to be around in the right place in the last 20 years, you may have met some of these people, because when they die, their names go into this text. So if you knew them while they were living, then you have a different connection with, when you get to that place, then you feel it in a different way. Feel is an experience, and that's what the text is about. Feel this, that these people are the progenitors of the entire tradition. And so, of course, we want to remember them. We want to loosely speaking, we want to worship them. Not really the individuals so much as what they gave us and what their willingness was, and the fact that they gave it to us often at some cost to themselves, by virtue of having to travel long distances, by virtue of having traveled to the United States to give teachings when they were old, so they probably died sooner than they would have if they'd had a little more leisure in their lives, and so on. And so we take the text as important. Also, if we read it in Tibetan, the sound of it is moving, it's beautiful. So you don't actually need to know who they are, but if you want, you can find out who they are. So we will read this text from page 1. Where does it go to here? Page 4, 5, 6. Looks like page 6. Page 6. We'll read it up to page 6. So while we recite it, it's another one of those opportunities. Watch your experience. It's not meant to be that you have to have a particular experience, but you can't read a melodic text without having an experience. So it's good enough. It's just melodic, good enough. And later on, you can implement some more pieces of it and the meaning going deeper. But every time that happens, the experience is critical to recognize.
Oi kya
Da dorje
chen kien no telo sherab zang po kien no naro jana siddhi kien no mar pachuki lodro keno mela jipa dorje keno dak poda ujenu keno palden sun kemba keno si tu drogun rechen keno pom drak sonan dorje keno drupchen karma pakshi keno kedru borgen chen borgeno semparanjun dorje keno Yalwa yuntun chen borgeno zamling chuki drakpa keno tokten kachu amborgeno chuje deshin chekpa keno jetsun ratna badra keno truku tongwa dunden keno kongen jamba zambo keno Johnson Baljo Dunru keno Gyalwan Judra Gyanzor keno Drupchen Trashi Paljor keno Some Mekyo Dorje keno Gyalwa Kuncho Yenla jeno Jetsun Waju Dorje keno Garwan Chuki Wang Chugeno Gyal Cho Chuyin Dorje keno Palden Yeshenim Borgeno Some
son do do dorje keno mi pam chudru jam so keno pema nyingje wang bo keno tek pa chuki dorje keno gyal se lodro taye keno kunzon ka gyal dorje keno
Pema
Wancho gyalbo keno
Palden kense
Ozer keno Ranjon rikpe dorje keno Drugwan orbu don drugeno Gyadag ranjon kon gyab keno
Bokado
Noam keno Drenchen sawe lama keno Yedam kilkor latso keno
Chukyong magun shamdre pieno Dakso do sem chen kula Tukze yeshe chen boy zikne Chak chen elu tuk pa zoji. So again, reminder, the more you understand what it is you're reading, then the more variations of experience will arise from it. So here on page 9 now, how are we doing? 10:30. Is it time for a break? No? Time for a nap? So on page 9, we come back to the refuge prayer. And here we have an elaborated refuge prayer in comparison to what we ordinarily recite, going for refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So here, this prayer is in an extended tradition that we refer to as the Vajrayana. And so there are elements in it that some of you will know about and some of you will not know about. So I just want to reiterate, it doesn't actually matter, because when you read it, you will have an experience. And when you get to the place where you don't know what you're doing, you'll have an experience which maybe is called irritation. And so that's good, actually. Not that irritation in and of itself is good, but the experiences will come whether you want them or not. So it's good practice to get used to all of our emotional states, everything that arises while we're practicing. Those are the things then that we find useful off the cushion in our ordinary life with each other. When we get irritated with each other, we then have a sense of like, I can put my awareness on that experience. I don't have to develop some kind of a critical aspect or spread gossip or do something else. We can just relax in that experience. So I think, in fact, it's the single most important thing that we do, is bringing ourselves to recognize experiences so that we don't feel perhaps inflamed by them. Thereby, generally speaking, we might say, we do a lot of unskillful things under those forces. And they don't help ourselves or others, and it often takes us a long time to dig out of those holes. So we'll start with the refuge prayer on page 9, and let's just take a chunk that is reasonable here. So page 9 through page 14. In essence, it's the same short refuge prayer that we recite after everything that we do. But here, just elaborate it a little bit, and when you read it, putting your awareness on the experience is good. If you don't understand all the pieces, it doesn't matter. You still have an experience, as long as you're alive or dead. You like that, right? Okay, from page 9 up through, what did we say?
14.
14, okay?
We're doing the visualization also?
If you know the visualization. So we'll come back to that at another point. That means stop. Good work. This prayer is repeated 3 times, as it says on the bottom of 10. Repeat 3 times. So we'll go through it 3 times, and now on the second time, when we recite the refuge prayer, we need to add something to it. Not words, but a visualization. So this is part of this lineage, is that we start out with a small seed, and we nurture that seed, and we keep nurturing it and adding and growing until it becomes more and more kind of complete. And so in this case, we never go for refuge for ourselves. So this is kind of hard to get a little bit, but of course we do go for refuge for ourselves, especially on a day when we feel confused or angry or somehow upset. We may turn to refuge for ourselves, but it is important to gradually develop the almost automatic thing of, I go for refuge for others, not for myself. So, okay, I also hope that I benefit, but the real benefit comes by virtue of practicing for others. So I think most of us have a kind of easy sense as adults that working on behalf of others is actually a cause of satisfaction and joy. And so here we imagine all sentient beings. So we're talking uncountable, not even just infinite, though infinite's pretty good. Infinite sentient beings extending to the limits of space itself. So I think in the case of Tibetans, they actually had a certain sense that there was an end to space somehow. So we need to kind of take that into account also. It's totally okay to imagine that sentient beings extend to the limits of space and time. Like there is no boundary. It's unlimited. And so we imagine that we are reciting refuge on behalf of and for all of those sentient beings. And we imagine them in front of us, like starting right in front of us. We often say, like your mother of this life, your children, your close Dharma practitioners. Different people will arrange it in a certain way, but generally just our connections in this life, which are precious. We imagine them just extending out, they fill all of space. And so that our practice is really focused upon all of those beings. So we'll turn back here, as we would anyway, to page 9. If I get the page wrong, just yell at me. I'm used to being yelled at. Isn't it? So here we'll recite this twice, now 2 more times. So traditionally we recite these things 3 times, but often it starts at one place and then goes forward. Thank you.
Nam ke tadan yam pe sem chen tan che du dine zung te ji si jan chub ning po la chi ki bar du pal den la ma dam pa nam la kya su chio yedam kil kor gi la sok nam la kya su chio sanje chom den de Pakpegendur Nam Lakyab Sujo Pawokandro Chukyon Song Metsok Yesheki Shendong Denpa Nam Lakyab Sujo. Again. Alden Lamadam Panam Lakyab Sujo Yedam Kilkor Gilatso Nam Lakyab Sujo Sanjay Chonden De Nam Lakyab Sujo Dampe Chunam Lakyab Sujo Pakpegendur Nam Lakyab Sujo Pawokandro Chukyon Song Meso Yeshe Shendong Denpa Nam Lakyab Sujo.
Now on page 11, we have another refuge prayer. Again, elaborating, adding, often, numerous times. Some people will recite the refuge prayer 21 times when they're practicing alone. It really is dependent upon, often, on where your inspiration lies and what you're interested in encouraging more of. So here on page 11 we have another refuge prayer, and it's titled The Refuge and Bodhicitta. So the bodhicitta aspect is critical. Here, while we're going for refuge, we also have the wish that through our efforts, all of our efforts, all of our practice, all of our intention, and all of our commitments, that our desire is that we accomplish full enlightenment, come to fully recognize our own primordially pure, inherent Buddha nature or awakened mind. And we do that on behalf of all beings by holding the wish that I will reach that state of realization, and I will spend the duration, like forever really, working for the benefit of beings. So we'll begin the prayer on page 11, and we'll recite that 3 times.
Sanje Judan Suki Chonam La Jangchu Padu Dani Kyab Suji Dagi Jin Soji Pe Sonam Gidrola Penche Sanje Rubajo Sanje Chodan Soki Chonam La Jangchu Padu Dani Kyab Suji Dagi Jin so ji pe so nam gi dro la ben chi san je dru ba shu san je chu dan so ki cho nam la jang chu pa du dan ni kya su ji da gi jin so ji pe so nam gi dro la ben chi san je ru ba yo.
Now, you may notice, if you don't already know, that there are a number of things that we're not covering in the text, which we could do, have done, will do again. but I'm wanting to focus today on developing the all-important ability to see our experiences as they unfold. So as we recite the prayer, you have enough attention to actually notice the experience that's unfolding without trying to manipulate it or make it into something else, just whatever it is. So now we're on page 12.
Lama, may we take a break?
What?
May we take a break
Take a break?
at some point?
At some point. Would you like to take a break now?
This point.
This is the point. Okay. Let's do a short dedication and then we'll take a break.
By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.
So take what time you need and we'll keep silence on the break.